And welcome back into the podcast. Today we have a very special guest. It is Lewis from Andy Blank. Lewis, how are you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on, Buster. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for being here. We got a lot to dive into. I was first made aware of your art because you did a collaboration with the NBA, and the NBA sent one of those my way. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So it sent me down a path of looking at all the rest of your stuff. How did you get started doing everything that you do?
Yeah, man, that was a great opportunity with the NBA. That was a cool thing to do, and it was cool. It was really cool to take like an artistic spin on the whole, on the NBA. That was awesome. Man, getting into it, I can go all the way back if you want me to. It's like it doesn't get meaty until the business really starts. But I didn't study I didn't study much. I didn't study any art at school. I went to university for 6 years and studied biomedical science and civil engineering. And I think I moved. I've been in the States for maybe a decade now. A lot of that time I've kind of been in and around the art world. And I kind of just fell into it. I've always liked business. I've always liked the creative side of business. And this is kind of just like the perfect merging of it. Andy's like a direct to consumer art and home decor brand. And I kind of just saw the way that, the current art world really, there's nothing from a gallery or anything of worth out there that's under 500, under 200. And spending so much time working with the materials that they use and just the whole game that's played, I just thought to myself, it can be done. Everything we kind of do is under that $300 mark, and we really are tailored to that accessibility, right? It really is a brand it's really helped people get stuff on their wall. There's like spending so much time in it, there's always like the intimidation of walking into a gallery and not knowing the questions to ask, or like it looks good, but who's the artist? So it really is taking the whole identity out of it. Andy Blank is not a real person. Andy Blank is just the name of the band. Andy Blank is the crew. Like, we have a team of 15 of us here in our space in Brooklyn, and we all are part of like creating the pieces and developing the concepts. So I mean, that started about 3 years ago, and fast forward now, we've shipped out almost 50,000 artworks to 30 countries all over the globe. And it's just like a niche we've kind of just been sitting in. It's really is like I find it more of it's turning into one of those gateway drugs for the real world. I think it's like people get that. It's a lot of people buy their first artworks from Andy just because it's
That's
there,
awesome.
and we use a lot of digital marketing to get in front of people, and we just make it so easy to upgrade people's walls. So
I love
yeah,
that.
that's yeah.
So when on the business side of it, you realized at some point from looking at the galleries and looking at people using the highest quality paint and
Mm.
canvases or whatever it may be, that there were actually margins in there. And
Oh
then
yeah.
that's when when did that click, and how did that click for you?
I think I was working a lot with I founded a business with my girlfriend, now wife, at the time years ago, and she's a very talented fine artist. And I just think, looking at the numbers, it's like it's a slimmer margin. It's as simple as that, Buster. It's a slimmer margin on our end, and we use the same materials you find in a lot of those pieces you'd find in galleries and museums. You pay for what you get for those sort of finer quality papers and canvases and paints, and we use very similar techniques. It's just done more like it's done just a finer margin, I guess. It's a very different game. It's a very different angle. It's a very anti art direction. There's no there's the name is part of it, but the whole idea of it is getting it out there, getting the product out there, not so much the name, or like the name prestige out there. We make good quality artworks and they last a long time. And if the name comes secondary, great. If you own Andy Blank, it's now turning into one of those situations like it's a recognizable sort of design. That's great. But the whole idea was, the pillars of the brand right from the start are still the same now. Is like it's accessible. Anyone, everyone's got, not everyone, but a lot of people got like $300 to spend, when it comes to doing up their space. And it's normally the last budget item is stuff for the walls. It's accessible, and it's good quality stuff, and a lot of it's still handmade here and with care with people with skill. So still to this day.
Wow. So now when you realize you can do this, what is the step to then scaling it? Because I feel like that's sort of like, to me at least, as somebody who likes art but likes business and entrepreneurship, that's like the epitome of success in art, is
Yeah.
being able to replicate yourself.
We had to scale. We scaled immediately. It sunk a lot of money. Like just to get started was a lot of capital. Everything. It only makes sense to buy stuff in bulk, especially in the materials that we use. So we went for that. And
What quantity were you buying this stuff in?
Quantity. I mean, I could, pallets. We had dozens and dozens of pallets. We have a 22,000 square foot space here in Greenpoint, which we moved into right from day one. Like lunacy when you think about it today, and it was terrifying. But we filled a 22,000 square foot space with all our boxes were packaged. All our packaging was custom cut and custom sized and labeled, and and it was just an experience. We don't have a storefront, we don't have a gallery where people can walk into, but that whole opening experience when they buy a piece is our storefront. So like they've seen the piece and they know what they're getting, but the experience of opening it and that revealing and being able to do it yourself. Everyone gets a kit where they can hang it themselves, and it gives ownership. It really makes that special for that. It's a special experience for people. There's instructions on how you hang your piece. If there's furniture around, how to hang it, how high, for people who've never done it before. But yeah, we scaled immediately. I think maybe it was just a bit of craziness to go that hard, but I think there was a bit of confidence in it. I spent a few years in the industry, and it was, to be honest, it was either going to fail, it wasn't going to go, it wasn't going to work, and it was worth just going hard right from the start. There's no second time doing it.
No, for sure. What lessons did you learn in trying to scale quickly?
I think I think with the scaling, I think going aggressively, there's probably a lot of stuff I didn't need to get straight up. There's people always talk about the minimal viable product. I think maybe try to fine tune a little bit more and cover every single base and every single what if anyone would ever have about our product or our brand. We try to capture on day one, and which is always a good thing to do. But I think we probably could have released. You probably didn't need a lot of the stuff that we needed and we thought we needed from the start. And it was probably could have cut a few things out, but I mean, we're glad we did it, and we learned those lessons pretty damn quick. We kept an eye on everything, so that was probably the biggest thing we learned right from the start. And then it's just a matter of it's a fine tuning thing after more clients come through, and more designs are released, and it's a giant testing ground for ideas here. And we sort of just work. What's the sort of identity for Andy, and what sort of pieces do well and that sort of thing. And yeah.
So you've been doing this for a little while now. Where do you want to see it go? Is this something that you would like? Like, it's funny for pieces that are so similar, like to compare it to sports cards. The cards from the 90s, when they printed a ton of them that are worth the most, are the errors. The error cards are some of the most valuable. Do you see, like, is that a dream for you, where like there are one-off things or random pieces here and there that are in museums, or what do you want to see happen?
Oh man, who knows? Like, that would be hilarious. I mean, there's a few one-off things we've done here. Like, I love basketball, and I've done a few backboards, and huge offers to buy these one-off things, and they're just hanging here in the studio to my right. But I think I really like the idea of really developing like the identity of the pieces going out. I think that's the real thing that can really keep developing and growing, is like the type of pieces and the materials that we use, and just showing people shit they've never seen before. Sorry if I
Right.
can't swear on this, but
No, you're good.
I think that's like a really important part about what you see in art now. Is I think a lot of people look at contemporary art and be like, I could have done that. But
Mhm.
there's a little bit of element of I've never seen that before, which I think is really interesting to people to see and like want to come back to more of. So, I mean, our audience is a lot of people who are looking to buy and fill their walls. A lot of artists follow as well. And it's like we're always trying. We're a collection of minds. There's a collection of minds here who just all they do is think of new concept and research. And our R&D department is just like gung ho trying to go for everything. That's what I'd love to see. If stuff ends up in a museum, fantastic. But that was at a certain time, a certain period, that was a really great relevant piece, and it was released. But we've moved on, sort of thing. So, but
What
yeah, I mean, if it
what
ends up
is
there, it ends up there.
what does that R&D process look like? Like how
Uh,
do you add in sort of your business sense to research and development in this new sort of art vertical that you've created?
yeah, that's a good question. It's looking for different. There's so many different colors and materials and concepts which have never really been tried and tested. So many combinations of all the three above too. And it's just seeing what works. A lot of it doesn't work, but we work in a lot of very heavy textural pieces. We do prints. We take all our own photography and print and frame everything else. We have our own like frame that we get custom made, and just different types of framing and different types of beautiful imagery, very safe, very racy, different materials. How crazy, how wild can you go? There is always the element of this has to get from this table to someone's living room. So, it has to be able to be boxed and shipped carefully. It can't be made of glass. But it's, using those constraints, it is really exciting to see what's out there. That's, you can walk down to your local art store and you can see what's there. But we love to using materials that are not traditionally art and combinations that are not traditionally going together to really give people that I've never really seen that before. I think mostly the people who really follow the brand are people who are not really interested in like the name as a first stop. If they're looking for something for their wall, they walk in, they want to see something. Oh, that would look great on my wall. And I think that's that's a big mantra of the brand. And yeah, we really are just trying to keep fresh in that regard on that front.
How much does social media play a part in the business, and how much have you seen it change sort of the art world since you first got going in it?
I think it's does a really great thing. I think social media is done a really good service to people with like a really creative mind and business direction. It just gives power back to the people who, it's an eyeballs game. I think if you're creating something and you want to offer your creations to the world, it is completely free, and it just requires a little bit of taste and just putting up getting your right style right on the brand, on the platform, and anyone can see it. But I think it's done a really great job of like elevating brands like this. Traditional brand building with whatever you want to call it, PR and billboards and television ads and whatever and flyers and that sort of stuff, be nothing compared to what it is now. And I really do think in the next 5 years, as things develop, there's still like things like TikTok, which is kind of growing, and it's already grown. But I just think it's going to really give a lot more power back to a lot more people with creative, and a lot of people who would never pursue a career in creative, doing something creative, can now think twice. You can even do this anonymously. I've done this for 3 years, and
Yeah, you're
people
telling
still
me
think
people. Yeah, right.
I get called Andy 99% of the time, except for family and friends. So you can do it completely anonymously if that's something you do as well. And like, a lot of people find those hidden talents for filmmaking and like having a beautiful eye for photography just by using these platforms. And I think it's a really good thing.
how do you see sort of AI art fitting into the entire like art business puzzle that you see in the world in front? Because I'm sure you've thought about it.
It's fascinating. I mean, it's fascinating. I have to say I haven't used it too much, but I think there is a place for everything. I think there's a place for everything developed. I think it's genuinely a great thing that AI has popped out there. I mean, everything new ruffles new. If everything you didn't ruffle feathers, then it's not a development at all. I think it's a good thing, and people will find really creative, brilliant ways to use it. But for here, I don't know. I've got to use it a bit more to see what it's all about. But I mean, we're still old school here, made by hand, I guess. Who knows
I love it.
who knows what's going to happen?
I love it. When you're thinking about how do you determine quantities for new pieces that you're making? Are you trying to develop, is it based on like the square footage that you have available for it? Or is it based on, like a strategy you have for how many you want out there in the world? Or what does that look like in your head?
We do, yeah. That's a lot of the pieces here are edition sizes. So, it's out of 200 or 500. And just I think it's important to have sort of a number on that gives as that little bit of like you and that little piece of property. There's only that many made by this people at this point in time, and you own one of them or however many. Normally, depending on the complexity of it and what's involved drives the edition size. We can be range from 100, 200, 500, up to 1,000, 3,000. Some of them are only available for 24 hours. So you've only got a day. You've got to be switched on to get it, or you miss out forever. And some are only available for a season. So, I mean, it all kind of changes. Everything's either limited in quantity and time, because I think it is important to keep fresh. And I think it also just to maintain the integrity of the brand little and integrity of the pieces. So it is kind of, it really depends on the piece and the complexity of it and how much we love it, really.
Makes sense. What's something on the business side that you only could have learned from having done what you've done over the last few years that you never could have known about this business when you first started?
That's a good question. I think I didn't realize the power of a good team. I think we getting those first initial hires and sort of help me was great. At that point, I think we were just looking for people to help along with the process. A lot of ideas came from us at the start. My wife worked really hard to get some ideas out at the start, the inception of it. And then after a while, it really was important to hire the right people. I remember during COVID, we had a couple of guys who used to work in kitchens, and they were laid off during that time, and they were really good with their hands. They were really clean. They worked in our painting department, so they're using paints and thick gels, and it's like being in a kitchen, right? So I had a couple of guys that used to be chefs, and they were just great. They were super clean, super organized, really efficient, that sort of stuff. But it's almost like they treat it like they're dishing up a plate, and it's like the same sort of thing, but without the sense of taste and smell. And it just wasn't right. We eventually had to get people who've used these materials before, like people who've been to art school. I think was really important to really focus on for that department. But now I really value the what a good team and a good team culture does for a brand like this. It's a room full of a lot of creatives, like a lot of people bouncing ideas off each other. I really think it's having a really good atmosphere in here is really good, really important. But a really good team, I think, was something I had to really learn. That was a really important part of brand. And now we've got a fantastic team, of like 15 guys here, and that took years to really build up and make sure everyone's comfortable and there are some really big parts that you got to think about. So
That's interesting. The idea of hiring from like adjacent industries that you wouldn't picture as adjacent as tests That's a funny, it's a funny concept. I don't know if I've heard that too much with chefs and
No,
artists.
yeah, it was, to be honest, there's some of the guys, well, there's like so many things, there's so many parts to this and so many different pieces. We've got over, 450 pieces available now. Some of them are perfect. Like some of these guys' hand control is just mind blowing. They could do brain surgery. Some of them, just the intricacies and how they control the palette knife is beautiful. But yeah, there was just a few things that just wasn't right when it came to like the eye of like color and a few things like that, which are really important with like the finishing touches with a piece. But yeah, it was a really interesting test. Um, and it was great, but it just didn't work out long term. But hey, it was a fun thing to really test
Yeah,
on.
super fun. I mean, you never
Yeah,
know. And now it's a great story. But
yeah.
uh, how did you decide on the name Andy Blank? Like, why the blank portion of that?
Do you know what? It started with I think it started with Andy Warhol. I think he was like he's a great inspiration. He was just a legendary figure. The blank came honestly just because it was a really good fit. I couldn't give you more detail than that. Andy Warhol, I think, just being the legend he has, Andy was always going to be it. Andy was always going to be in the name. And I think Andy itself probably wasn't the best option. There's probably some copyright issues there, but some trademark issues there. But blank just came because it was just a good fit. It rolls off the tongue, Buster. Honestly, as easy as that.
And
Don't want to overthink it.
you use a
Don't want
lot
to
of
overthink it.
white in your art. So maybe
Yeah, there we go. Blank canvas. A lot of ways you could spin it. So I probably should think of a better story for that one, Buster. But no, it's as underthought as that.
do you ever want to work on super large scale? I mean, I know you talked about the backboards, but have you ever thought about, or wanted to do something really, really big, like buildings or things like
Yeah,
that?
we've done a couple of years ago. Adidas asked us to do a wall um in their Hudson Street, in their Houston Street flagship. I think it was an Adidas, and it was like 40 feet long by 12 feet wide, and it was just this giant. We use a lot of resin, which is like a super glassy, super beautiful material that sets rock hard, and it just can be tinted any color from hyperfluoro to black as black. And we just did this super large, in your face, aggressive colored wall. And it was a blast. It really was fun to go, large scale. And it's not like there's situations like that don't pop up all the time. But yeah, building side of the buildings would be fun. Who knows? But yeah, that was a good thing to do. I think those sort of situations sort of allow like the team and us to really like expand to see how large we can go with ideas, because everything really is concealed it's ideas that are concealed in the shipping box.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't start there, but I mean that is like that is our service. That is what we do. A lot of these things pop up and it's like we got to do something wild here. So I mean we live in an area, a part of Greenpoint where there's a lot of film shooting taken, and like there's a lot of films shot on and around these streets and a lot of prop departments. And I think there was a few guys just throwing out these perfect condition backboards, hoop, and net, still the net still tied up. And there were about five of them. And I'm like, what? Why? How? Like, what are you doing? I think they only needed one. I don't even know what it was for, what show, anything. And I picked them all up for $50 each, and I just had them in. And then I stripped them down and covered them in resin and hung them up, and they just turned out stunning. So that was just a fluke, though. But a situation like that, we'd love to do. We've done a few other stores. We did a few stores for Nike in over in Asia, and we're doing another one for Adidas soon in the next couple of months. But yeah, they often pop up, and we jump at the chance.
So you're in terms of scale again, you're at 15 people, you're doing a lot. What is like the next scale for you? Because I'm sure,
I think it's just keep momentum. I'm a strong believer that life's all about momentum. I think it's just keep growing, new concepts, new ideas, filling the team out with people with more and more minds to kind of add to this giant stew of creativity. And I think it can only get better. Like, more minds, the better, I think. And I think it's just to grow the team out and get crazier and more creative, I think, and just, keep showing what the brand can do. We are like probably pushing a little bit more international. We definitely started only exclusively in the States for the first couple of years, and started dipping our toes in the water of like, Europe and Australasia, and it's been received really well there. So
And you
finding
ship
a way
that
to,
stuff from Brooklyn
yeah,
over there? Got it.
yeah, we ship everything over from Brooklyn, packaged up to the eyeballs. We ship stuff to Australia, daily, weekly. That's probably the furthest place we ship to. But yeah, all over the place. But I think it's probably to go more international. I think is definitely a market there, and people sort of really picking up on that. So that's probably the next big step.
Cool. Yeah, it doesn't get much further than Australia from Brooklyn.
Tell me about it.
Yeah,
Tell me
you got to be
about
sending packages to the moon next.
it. You may as well, but it takes about the same amount of time.
Yeah, that's a funny idea. What would your best advice be for, sort of up and coming artists, and what maybe they should take advantage of given the current state of the market?
I think specifically for artists, I think it's just to learn all the business side you can. I think a brand like this is probably 80% back end numbers, books, balancing, like dealing with the team and just getting the back end right. And then there is that 20% that everyone sees, which is the beautiful pieces that are developed and that sort of thing. But I think, and if anyone wants to get in that, I really think that's the biggest side. If you don't know it, it's know it. Everything, like everything back end when it comes to like balancing your books, to doing your taxes, importing stuff and everything like that. I think if you want to get to big scale, it really is to learn everything and be a part of everything. I think that's probably the best advice I can give, because I think the creative side probably comes naturally to these people, and they don't really have to think about it. So, I mean, it's obviously something you can always develop, but you can have fun doing that. So, I really think it is to learn that back end or get someone on board who loves to do it. So that's probably the other bit of advice.
What resources did you use to learn all of that?
YouTube. I spent a shit ton of time learning everything I can off YouTube, Photoshop, how to use DSLR cameras, how to find manufacturers overseas. Was just tons and tons and tons of research. And you can learn anything online. So, I mean, it helps. I went to university for a long period of time, so I don't hate numbers. I quite enjoy numbers and the business side of things and balancing and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think I just threw myself into it and became obsessed with finding a marriage between the two, and just seeing something work, seeing how it can work. But yeah, you can learn anything. Honestly, there's so many resources of that there to learn everything, right? Even like if you've never painted and you want to get into it, like there are hundreds of results in types of brushes and paints and whatever. So and then just applying your eye to it. So yeah.
It's funny. There are definitely too many resources. The hardest part is actually just picking which ones to pay attention to.
And you end up just clicking on the top ranked one with the best tags.
Yeah, the algorithm. You end up clicking on the one with the best thumbnail.
You gotta love and hate the algorithm. You gotta love and hate it.
Yeah, it definitely it's hit or miss.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Louis, your story is so inspiring. I think there's a lot to learn from, for a lot of people. Who were your biggest artist inspirations? I know you mentioned Warhol. Was there anybody else that or is there anybody else that you sort of look at in that same light?
I think like you, someone I've always really liked Damien Hirst, because I just think he probably the first and foremost, because I really don't think he gives a fuck. Like, I just think he just does exactly how he thinks it should be done. And that's, I think, the best way to do it is like, it's exact, however you do it is the right way. And I just think that is the thing he wakes up and tells himself every single morning. And he's just turned into this like mega artist, mega who, whatever he is. It's like gone but beyond being an artist. But he's probably, yeah, it's probably a big inspiration in terms of just scale and getting to, a site like to that size.
Yeah, he did a crazy job. My favorite thing he ever did was I think it was Sotheby's in like 2007, 2008, and he just took like 250 pieces straight to auction. And that was like the
Totally.
first time that had been done by a really big artist, not going through
Totally.
somebody else. And I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, that is like the most badass thing you can do. It's just
Yeah.
like he literally flipped off the entire industry and then made
Yeah.
$100 million or whatever it was.
He, and like even when NFTs popped up, he just ran head first into it, and he did that really fascinating collection. He has that really good balance of shock factor and like very beautiful and very questionable. Like it's a really interesting mix, and I think he really has the perfect amount of never seen that before sort of when he creates something. So stuff you've seen every single day combined and just presented in a different way. And yeah, he really has captured. He's also a character in his own sense. So he's nailed that. Yeah, I really think he's nailed the like being the artist and doing the art.
Yeah, and then also the level of collaboration that he does
Oh
is
yeah,
bonkers. I mean, doing things like Drake's album cover and
totally.
things like that. I
I
mean,
know. It's
are
probably
are,
the
are
yeah.
collaborations with people like that something that you'd want to do?
Yeah, definitely down the line. It's not a focus. Collaborations come up, and I believe they have to sort of happen naturally for them both to work. But definitely, if someone like Hearst came knocking, of course. But collaborations, it's not a focus. It really has to be something that aligns and just happens kind of naturally. I do think there's such thing as like over collaborating, and sometimes you look at collaborations and like that was unnecessary. But I think yeah, it really has to be just like a really natural thing that kind of happens, and that's what we kind of wait for.
Cool. What is like I know obviously there's like the paint cost, there's the margin, there's the
Mm.
shipping, can it be shipped? But what is like the yes or no beyond just like do I think that looks good in terms of deciding whether to make something new or not make that new thing?
Sorry, they're doing some drilling upstairs.
I can't hear it.
Oh, okay, gosh, that's good. I think you just have a feeling when you look at something based off. It's a feeling. I think for a lot of people here, they work off a feeling of it's if it's the right sort of piece. We don't really create to a formula or any sort of cookie cutter, but I think um, there really has to be that sort of little bit of I've never really seen that before. It's a feeling when you're having sort of like we know that we have a look and like a colored and a direction that we kind of work towards, and we're not going to do anything too morbid or anything too boring.
Mhm.
But it is, it is to be something that sort of fits what we kind of do. We venture from very minimalist to fluoros, but as long as it kind of feels right and that's the right sort of fit for the brand and what we're kind of doing, that's kind of what we do. I know that doesn't make any really sense, but I
No,
think
it makes
I
sense.
swear it's something that happens here.
No, it makes perfect sense. No Supreme Court voting on
Hundred
each
percent.
piece.
Yeah, just
Yeah, I
take a
mean,
word for it, sort of thing.
it's the same way with any of my businesses, like even the basketball media companies. When you
Totally.
do it for long enough, it's just a
You
feeling.
just know it.
But the
Yeah,
hardest part
100%.
is hiring people who also can, either be taught that feeling or just innately have that from their own success.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
It I
yeah, go ahead.
agree. I think it is really like when you can't like teaching when someone walks into Andy and they want to work for a brand like Andy, it's really hard to get an idea what like if they're going to really take on exactly what we want to do and have the same sort of eye. And it's something we kind of have to just work on and develop in some situations. But yeah, it's like a team. Yeah, you're right. It's a team really having a good team that really adopts it. Is just triples like your productivity, I think.
but also having some creativity of their own. Like you want
Oh
people,
yeah,
like that balance is so hard though, you know, to
totally.
find people with both. I'm sure it's hard in every industry, let alone like art and media.
I know it's sometimes it's really hard to balance so many creatives in one space, but I just yeah, I agree. I think um yeah, it's a really tough thing to really get right at the start, but
Sort of just got
yeah,
to get lucky a couple times and then you can build
yeah.
off the baseline of being lucky.
Some people don't know they love it until they start working on it, and they just yeah, and I think that people just grow into things, but yeah, I think looking for the right team and to really share the vision with and work on it with you and like really work seamlessly is like I said before, super important. That's one of the things that is one of the like really up like the top in terms of you know, like maintain the brand and growing is really keeping a really tight, great team of different flavors, right? Just to create that one big complex flavor.
I love it. Well, Lewis, you're crushing it. We're all rooting for you. People
Thanks,
can find you best at Andy Blank. What are the
Andy
best places to
Blank.
find?
Website's andyblank.com. The handle is Andy underscore blank. TikTok same Andy underscore blank. I mean, that's the best way to catch a lot of the stuff that we're doing. Very active on the socials. So
I love it. Keep crushing, brother.
thanks, man. Appreciate it, Buster.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Take it
Peace.
easy.